and working with us for 2 days. Board members, don't worry, we still have board events for you, but this is going to be our final epic live event. So we want to make sure that you're there. So with that being said, we will kick things off. So again, I see Ruben, Sheldon, Joey, Gary, Katswar, Tamara. You guys are following directions. You are raising your hands, and we're super excited to kick things off. Woo! Wow, I tell you what, that was a lot. So, Roland, I see Roland jumped in here. How are you today, Roland?
I am good. Give me 2 seconds just to make a couple of little adjustments here, and then I will be right with you.
I got it. So, does anyone, while we're waiting for those 2 minutes, have a win that you would like to share for this week? You know how I love wins. Anyone got anything? If you do, you can unmute and just say it. That way you don't mess up the hand raising. Sheldon, do you got anything? I know you've been working on a couple deals. You got any wins?
No, just a lot more expenses.
Well, we'll talk about that here in just a little bit with Roland. Anyone else? Laura, where's Laura? Laura, you always have something really exciting and fun to share with your wins. I know you've been doing some amazing outreach dialing. Laura, Belle, do you have anything you want to share for a win?
Well, hey everybody.
Hi.
Yeah, I'm making cold calls. I'm getting some discovery calls on the books. Unfortunately, the one that was supposed to happen 30 minutes ago has to reschedule, so we'll get that back on. But I had a discovery call last week with a seller, and he's going to send me his financials.
Awesome. Well, I will tell you what, Laura, I've bragged on you before, and I'm going to keep on bragging because I've never seen anyone that comes in, and of course, you're in the fast track. You've got your one-on-one coaching, you're working with your coach. But I will tell you what, you do exactly what we tell you to do, and you just go out and you follow the plan that Roland's laid out. You go out and you start cold calling, you talk to sellers, you're getting these calls on the books, you're getting real deals. And I could not be more proud of you. So well done, Laura. Really proud of what you're doing, and I can't wait to see that first deal closed.
All right,
All
Dean, I am good whenever.
All right, Mr. Frazier is ready. I'm excited about these questions. You guys have brought some good ones to the table. So let's start off with Ruben. You've got your hand raised first. Ruben?
Hey, Ruben.
Hey, Roland, good morning. Thanks for taking my question. Just to give you a kind of a quick bit of context. So I've been in the mastermind for a year and a half, maybe. And I've had tons of conversations. I've had 50 plus conversations with owners. I think I've made maybe 9 offers and I've received 9 no's. So I guess I'm closer to my yes, but and I'm kind of right in the thick of it right now. I'm currently working 2 different deals. I've had discovery conversations with the owners. I've reviewed financials. I'm kind of at the offer stage. And so I just feel like I really kind of understand our approach, right? I get our overall strategy. So I've got some deal flow. I understand I've defined my acquisition criteria or my investment thesis. I kind of understand the creative financing kind of strategies. I think I'm missing something maybe on the negotiation piece. And so my question is revolving negotiations, right? Kind of the offer. And I know you've talked about, your approach or your style to negotiations, which is more of a collaboration versus contention.
Yep.
Appreciate that. I have a 2-part question. The first part is I'm wondering about more like your kind of your sequence or like your kind of the mechanics of how you make an offer and
plus
and,
1714
and just kind of how how you negotiate. So and then the other part is kind of the psychological part, how you kind of bridge the gap between the seller's negotiation position versus your negotiation position, right? So it's kind of a 2-part question, but the first part is that part, like the kind of the sequence. So in other words, after you've had those initial discovery calls, you've reviewed financials, how do you go about making the offer? Do you what step by step, just kind of what does that sequence look like for you when you're making an offer to a seller?
Yeah, I'd love to break down I think you learn so much from the failures. You know, failures are feedback and data. And so since you've had 9 occasions that you've gone through the process, then I think it's good to look at those. The first, I would say, were you dealing with motivated sellers each time? Because your audience that you're speaking to is critical. And so if you're not dealing with a motivated seller and you're trying to either negotiate your way to a lower price or collaborate your way to a, to get them what they want, but they're not motivated and the only thing they want is cash, then that's, those deals can close, but that's going to be more like a more traditional SBA and or a hard money lender to get it closed. And so I would say that that's the first thing that you really want to look at. So what is your positioning? Because if your positioning is, please sell me your business, I don't really want to sell, but if I got the right offer, cool, but I need all cash and I need my price. That's a tough position for you, and you're starting at a disadvantage right from the beginning. Yeah. So would you say that of the 9 offers that you made, they were all to people who were really motivated to sell their business?
Not motivated enough to, come down from their kind of tough positions. And, there was a little bit of compromise, but just not enough for me to move forward. So I would say no.
Okay. So then let's go to, so that's one thing that we want to think about then as you go forward. Like, how do I have a successful transaction and get my deal done? Ideally, you've got somebody that actually wants to sell their business. So are they shiny object syndrome suffering, ready to retire, bored with the business, burnout, moving for health reasons, partnership disputes, death in the family, all those things, like those things that create motivated sellers are really important. And then let's assume now that you've got a motivated seller. Would you say that you have, so of those 9, you would say none of them were motivated?
Well, actually, I think a few of them were. In fact, one of them, and they don't always give you all the information, right? Because they're holding something back. And what's that book, the kind of the negotiation Bible, the Never Split the Difference, where he talks about the black swan, and you want to uncover that information that they're holding back. Yeah. So I actually ended up following up with an owner that I made an offer to. And 6 months later, he's like, yeah, like my business is kind of blown up. It's collapsed. He had regulation issues. I think he was having those issues before during our negotiation, which was the reason that he was looking to sell. Mm-hmm. He was essentially kind of conducting business without the proper licensing in the city. Okay. And couldn't.
So the good news there is that his black swan probably saved you a lot of hassle.
Yeah. He's still operating under a different kind of model, which is still past, but I think he was motivated because he knew that he was in trouble, but still wouldn't back off of his position. So it's just like, so I feel like he was motivated, but just still, I couldn't crack the code on how to get him to come down.
Yeah. And you can't solve an emotional issue with a logical solution, right? So I know a good friend of my wife's, when we were dating, and this was around like 2008 when all the subprime stuff was melting down. And this friend of hers was in her house, and she had continually taken out more and more money against the house, and the value was going up. And then it was all coming due. And, come around that time when everything imploded, she was upside down in the house, and she had the opportunity to, she was upside down in the house to where she could have sold it for break even and gotten out of all the loans. But she wouldn't sell it because she felt that it was going to be worth more later and she would be giving something up. She literally allowed the full foreclosure process to go through, including the negative ding on her credit and everything, rather than taking the reasonable offers from sellers who were offering her the market value that would have completely taken her out of the loans with no debt, no equity, like no money in her pocket, maybe $5,000, but she couldn't do it because she was emotionally attached irrationally to the concept of the past being the model of the future. And so if you're dealing with somebody, and your guy that you mentioned it was a guy.
Yeah.
Okay. Your guy that you mentioned is a good example of that, right? Here's somebody who knows they're operating a business illegally, who's facing regulatory and other pressure that was definitely present at the time you were talking to them,
Yeah.
who decides, let me bail this out and foist this business off on some unwitting buyer and get some cash in my pocket. And even though your offer, I'm guessing, was a good offer that would have maybe over some period of time gotten him some money, he would rather see the business be completely decimated than acknowledge the logic of this is the best thing to do.
Right.
So unless you can come up, like when you're dealing with that, and it's really good to me, I love this example, because when you're dealing with somebody, you don't know what they know that they're not telling you that's truly the underlying factor. And sometimes it's it's not really cool, like that one where he's trying to find a sucker to take the business off their hands. So the good news is, you going through the process and staying in the logical frame of mind is really important. So never leave that frame. Now, then the next thing would be, okay, but is there an emotional trigger that I'm missing that I could maybe activate to help get this person over into the logical solution that I want, even if the reason they're doing it is emotional, not logical? Like
Sure.
your reason of, yeah, but you're going to lose the business and then you won't have what you built and then your employees will be on it, and they're like, I don't care about any of that. I just have to get this. Okay. So at that point, then you have to say, what would have to be true for me? And I want to spend more time with you on this because I really feel this can help everybody, especially because you've kind of gone through the process. You're clearly making an effort. You've thrown out, offers, you found sellers, and you haven't been able to close a deal. So then the next thing is, what would have to be true for this person to sell the business? And in that case, if what would have to be true isn't going to meet your logical or reasonable financial and personal objectives in buying the business, then it's a no. And we need to weed those people out faster so that you're not, like one of the biggest challenges I see people running into is that they spend so much time on just a few deals that they stop the activities of going out and sourcing more, and then they miss out on the opportunity for the deal that actually would work. Yeah. So the first thing we're starting with here is be sure that you do actually have a motivated seller. Now, this seller should have been motivated, but sadly, their own limiting beliefs were causing them to not be a motivated seller. And ideally, how do we work through that faster? So ask yourself, how can I qualify, disqualify within 15 to 30 minutes of a conversation, whether this is something that merits diving into or I need to move on? And that'll help you increase the churn rate that you're getting through the leads that you've got that are bad to get to the few that are the gold. So that's the first thing. Okay. Then the second thing is your positioning needs to be, I am here to either rescue, which is more of a turnaround, so we don't really like that, but to help and advise. And so if we don't have somebody that's motivated, then it's difficult to help them do anything except get a lot of money for their business right now today, right? Because that's what they want. So that ties into the motivated seller. So once we found the motivated seller, then it's how do I position myself as trusted advisor, helper, friend. That's the know, like, trust. Tell me the story of the business. Tell me about your entrepreneurial journey. Let me find the common touch points. And then what is it that you're going to do with the money, right? Yeah. So now what I'm going to do with the money, great. Now we've got a common goal. My goal at that point is to get you enough money to do what you want to do with the money that you get from selling the business as soon as possible. And frequently that's going to help us separate how much cash do they need versus how much seller financing and earnout can they deal with. And now we're collaborating towards that. So now you've positioned yourself with a motivated seller to get them the thing that they want. And now it just comes down to terms. So then it's, okay, if the business then initially your rough due diligence, you fill out the data, collection sheet that we have, and you've got the information to start thinking about crafting an offer, then it's you craft the offer. And particularly in the new software that we have, the Deal Done software, it creates deal stacks for you. But no matter what, we're saying, so I'm going to craft my offer not thinking about what they want, only thinking about what's the best offer I feel like I could make that has the terms that I want to have. And then that truly creates the gap that we're going to try to fill. Because now we've said, okay, this is what the offer I would make is, and let's say that it's $1 million and it's 80% seller financing and 20% earnout. And then you're going back and looking at what they need to get what they want. And they need $2 million. They want $2 million for the business, and they want $1 million in cash, but they're willing to finance $1 million. Okay, I've got a gap now of $1 million.
Right.
Can I fill that in any way? And then go through all of the, the list that we've got of like the 30 creative financing things that fund 80% of businesses.
Right.
Go through that list first. Can I do, rollover business startup for my IRA? Can I do supplier financing? And now you're getting into, you've identified a gap that you feel is potentially bridgeable. And now we're going to look at the assets of the business and the information that's available and say, can any of these creative financing strategies that we've got get me close? Doesn't have to solve the full gap, because we might have to have the seller come down, but this is how we get them to come down, right? So now you've gone through that and you said, okay, well, I can get this employee is going to stay, and that's an integrator equity, and that's going to get me 100K. So now I'm 900,000 short because they're doing $1 million financing and they wanted 900,000 more because they want 2 million and I only have 1 million, right? Okay, great. Suppliers, I can get 100,000 from them. I can get factoring of accounts receivable for another 100,000. Now I'm 700,000 away, and it's just chipping away at that gap. And now let's say that you've done everything that you can possibly think of, and you're still 500K apart. Then you mentioned the book, right? Never Split the Difference. Then you go to the seller and you say, look, market value on this business, because it's an owner-operated business, is about $1.2 million. I can get you $1.5 million on terms, and these are what the terms look like. And so I can come up with from the business about $500,000 in cash, and your $1 million in seller financing leaves us about $500,000 apart. But truly, you're asking me to overpay for the business. How can I do that is the Chris Voss question, right? How can I do that? And then they're either going to be unreasonable emotional, and you're going to have to find an emotional thing to solve that, which would be, if you've identified in advance, why are they a motivated seller? They're a motivated seller because their family has now had, their kids have had grandkids, or their kids have had kids. So now they've got grandkids. They've been working in this business for 20 years. They're kind of burnt out, and they would love to relocate to be close to the kids, but they can't continue to operate the business and relocate. Right. So then I'm not talking about the offer terms. I've told them the deal. I've told them what market is. I'm said, how am I supposed to do that? Now I'm going to go back to the emotional arguments. Look, when I first talked to you, man, Ruben, when I first talked to you, you said that you were kind of done with this business. Are you done with the business? Yeah, I am. I'm really tired of it. What is it that causes you to be tired of it? So I'm hammering into the emotional reason. And you also mentioned that you wanted to move from San Diego to Phoenix to be closer to your kids, because now you've got grandkids and you want to be in their lives and you're not, and you feel like these special times are kind of slipping by. I mean, what's going to happen if you wait 2 or 3 more years to sell this business? They're going to be getting older and you're going to have missed out on this. I mean, I'm trying to help you here, but you're asking me to overpay for the business. I've come up. This is a really cool strategy, right? I've come up from what I feel is the market value of the offer to about 20% higher than that. I've gone from $1.2 million to $1.5 million. I just can't get to 2, and the business won't help me pay for it either. So now you've got emotion, logic, motivated seller, fair offer, and it's either going to work or it's not.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
That's awesome. This is good. It's good to hear you. Look, can I ask you, so do you give them an evaluation of the business to kind of anchor it? So, because an example, this guy, he's valuing his business at 3.6x. I don't think it's worth more than like 2.3x.
Yeah.
So
Is it owner operated?
yes.
Yeah, so you can use the business value stats that show, I mean, across all owner-operated businesses, the historical multiples as of right now,
Sure.
I think the first quarter of 25 report just came out, and for the past like 15 years of these reports, all the owner-operated business multiples of private companies that are selling between 2 and 3.
Sure. Yeah.
That's just what it is. And so that's going back to, look, I can give you documentary, this is what these businesses sell for. And by the way, you got some hair on yours, or yours is better, so I can get you a little bit more. But ultimately, the market tells us what it's worth, and I can't pay you more than that unless you give me terms that allow me to do that.
Yeah.
And then it's back to the law of price and terms, which I do think is good to explain to them. So I wouldn't get to telling them what the value of their business was until you can't hit what they want for it, or if you feel that you would be overpaying for it based on the terms that you can get beyond what you're willing to do. So ideally, you're not having to, like, the fewer things that you are misaligned on, the better. So if I don't have to misalign on, you say it's worth 2 million, but I know it's only worth $1.2 million. If I don't have to talk about that, that's better. If I can just have the conversations and say, man, I'm trying to get you everything I can. What are you going to do with money? You need this much now? Okay, great. I can only see that with your seller financing and what the business has, it only really supports about $1.2 million,
Okay.
right? Now I'm not saying your baby is ugly and not worth what you say it is. I'm saying this is what, and you can even go to like SBA things. You can say, I'm going to have to get this valued by my lenders or my finance. You could say my financing sources, right? Now those might be SBA or bank, or it might be creative, but ultimately it's like, I'm going to have to justify this to a third party. And just like, if you ever hold if I'm talking to you, I'd be like, have you ever sold a house, Ruben? Have you ever you wanted more for the house and then somebody made an offer on it and the bank was like, well, we appraised it and it's just worth this much. So no matter what you and I think it's worth, that's not as relevant as what my lenders and creditors think it's worth. So I can only finance this business to the tune of about $1.2 million. And you're probably going to find the same thing with everybody else, because it's just like, these are the numbers. This is what it makes. You're an owner operator. Whoever comes in, I'm going to have to replace with somebody else. If I look in your area, it's going to cost me about $150K to replace you with that. That's got to come off of your profit that you've got right now. And that leaves us about here, right? Then I'm still not arguing it's not worth it. That's the thing you want to stay away from. Okay. You want to stay, it only supports an acquisition at this amount. I believe you. If I could get a situation where I could get this financed at the number that you're talking about and it would support it, I'd do it all day long, because you would. Yeah. Like, for example, you could say, if you'll give me a 20-year financing at 0% interest, I can get your $2 million, because I can get you $50 million a year for however many years that is, right?
Yeah, this is good. Okay, this is perfect. And you basically have answered all my follow-ups in many ways. That was one question also, because I've identified tons of, kind of buyer risks on my part, owner operated, no clear financials. It's dependent on the owner of the property renewing the lease. There's all these risks. And I'm wondering, should I kind of express those risks to him and kind of justify my valuation versus his? Or am I risking calling the baby ugly and kind of offending him?
Well, you're not. You're not, unless you say, your business isn't worth this. Don't say that. You want to say, look, I'm trying to figure out how I can get your price. This is collaboration, right? Let's start with the overvaluation. He's got it valued, and let's say it's a 4 versus a 2, so he's got it overvalued by 100%. So then it's, okay, I'm trying to get to the number that you want. Here are some challenges. This lease that's coming up, we're going to have to solve for that and figure out what that's going to be. Because is it going to go up? Is it going to go down? You're going to need to take care of that before I can address what's happening there. So I'm always we, not you. Sure. We need to figure out what's going to happen with the lease before I can really tell you if I can come close to your offer. Also, what were the two other things? The owner operated. The owner operated. We need to figure out, because I'm an investor. I'm not buying a job, and pretty much anybody that comes into the business is going to have to think that way. So either then you start talking about, it looks like you haven't been paying yourself, and so your salary's not deducted from the number. So we need to hit that. Now, what might happen is, because another way for you to approach and get the result is that he wants a 3.5 and you say it's worth 2.5. Well, 2.5 times a restated number that's lower in profit, right? 3.5, his multiple times a different restated profit number could equal his multiple. So then we're like, what does he want for the business? Is it that he wants a certain dollar amount, or is it that he wants this multiple because he's just got that in his head?
Right.
And different people are focused on different things. And I remember a criminal lawyer that I was talking to one time who was representing a client, and he said, it's the craziest thing. He said, I got a plea deal for the guy, and it was 3 years. And I said, so we're looking at, I probably got you down from 10 years to 3 years if you agree to it now. And he said, and the guy was like, man, there's no way I could do more than 36 months. Like 36 months is 3 years. But he just rolled with it. And he was like, okay, so at 36 months, you're okay? And the guy's like, I'm okay. Now that is a fairly extreme, I hope, example. But like literally, because the guy was thinking in terms of months, he couldn't receive the information in years because months felt like a shorter period of time for him than years. And so it's the same thing here with our multiples. If they want the multiple, then we need to work on the EBITDA, or the SDE in this case, because it's owner operated, to get that number down to where the multiple that he wants can be applied to the right SDE. And then you can say, so, and the way I would go about that is I would in advance calculate what can I do to attack the SDE. And then I would say, okay, so if I can get you a multiple of 3.5 on whatever the SDE that we agree on is, then you're good. Yeah, I'm good. Now you've got a trial close and a commitment, and you've got ego. Like, I don't want to back off. I said, I'm good. Right now you're like, okay, so we've got to take out your salary. We've got to add into the expenses your salary that you're not taking because you haven't been paid. And whether I'm in there or I hire somebody, we've got to put somebody in there. Let's figure out what a fair amount is for that. Is that okay with you? Yeah, that's okay. Trial close all around. Like, how many yeses do I get? Okay, great. So now you have you've agreed to that. Well, I don't know that that's the right number. Okay, well, here is salary.com, and salary.com and payscale.com both say that in Phoenix, Arizona, a manager for a private business in the fitness space around this revenue is going to be about $125,000 a year. So that's the data. Do you agree that that's what that says? Yes, I do. Okay, great. So now we need to add that back, right?
Right.
Well, yeah, I guess so.
Yeah,
okay,
I guess
great.
so. Right, yeah.
Right. So now I've lowered, and depending on what it is, like in a business that's got $1 million of profit, which isn't a lot of businesses. So let's even say it's a business that's got $500,000 in profit. Well, that 125,000 just reduced the profit by 25%. 125,000 divided by 500 is 25%. So now if I multiply my 3.5 instead of my 2.5, because I'm only off by 1 there, right? My multiple difference, what I want to pay is 2.5, what he wants is 3.5. So I'm only 1 turn away, and it's making $500,000. So that's the amount that we're off. And I've just knocked 25% of that off. So I'm 25% of the way towards getting agreement on the multiple times that number. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. It sounds like you're trying to get him what he wants, but also trying to get obviously what you want. And if you can get him what he wants, you're happy to do that with terms, but oftentimes that may not be the case. So you're trying to get him this way. Do you start in with, like, when you make an offer, do you typically have 1 or 2 or 3 ideas of an offer, and
yes,
you start with your lowest offer, and then you're kind of coming up as you go along? Because obviously
it's not necessarily the lowest. It's the most favorable to me, because the lowest is probably cash, and that's my least favorite, because to me that's the most risk, right? So I actually generally lead with the highest offer. And what's psychologically important about that is the highest offer has the most favorable terms to me. Okay. And it allows me to go back and talk with them about the law of price and terms. If it's your price, it's my terms, right? If it's my terms, it's your price.
Yeah.
So and to me, always the perfect example and for all of you that are here, like I'm spending this time because to me, these are the issues that you should be thinking about. So then you talk about the law of price and terms. It's like, I would be willing to pay $10 million for a business that generates 100,000 a year if I could pay $1 a year for 10 million years. Because I can support that.
Sure.
It's way overvalued, but the present value, if I discounted, 10 million years of $1 payment, the actual present value of that is going to be next to nothing because it's over so much time, right?
Yeah.
So time value of money brings that back down. So that's the cool thing that most people aren't thinking about that are sellers is that, look, I can get you the money you want. It just has to be over the right amount of time. This house, I was able to get the seller close to what the seller wanted, despite the fact that the seller had had the house on the market for almost 2 years before selling it, because I gave the seller close to what the seller was asking for, but I asked for a 10-year interest-only loan. So if and he said yes, right? So if for most of the price of the house. So like I live in this crazy house for, a little over $5,000 a month and have for 7 years and got 3 more before I even have to deal with it. But gosh, over that period of time, the house value has gone crazy. It's almost doubled, right? And the time value of that amount of money, let's just say it was $2 million, right? $2 million 10 years from now is worth so much less than $2 million today. But for the seller, it was the price. For most of the sellers of businesses that you guys are all talking to, price is very important. Terms are less so, even though they will all tell you, well, I need to have all cash.
Right.
Awesome. I can't get you that price at all cash, but I can get you your price with the right terms. Let me explain to you the law of price and terms. And the law of price and terms is kind of makes sense to people. And it sounds fair, right? So then, and I actually do use that example. Well, I could pay you that amount. Like, you want $1 million more than it's worth. How about if I give you what I think it's worth now and I give you the extra million, $1 a year for 1 million years? I can do that, right? And then we laugh, or the seller gets pissed off and I'm like, okay, this isn't my guy. But then you laugh and it's changed. It's been a pattern interrupt, and it's also changed the way they're thinking. And then you're back to collaborating.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at generally what's the most favorable offer to me to get them their price, if I can. If their price is anywhere close to reasonable, what are the terms that will get me there? And then that's what I tell them. And then when they say, oh, but I need all cash now, I'm like, oh, well, that's a different offer. Okay. I'm like, oh crap. Now here's the strategy of that psychologically. It's loss to them. It's if you choose door number 1, which is all cash, instead of door number 2 that I showed you, you've lost $1 million from the purchase price. Because what I'm willing to pay you that price. Right? That's very psychologically effective. Yeah. Well, if I do take the all cash, I'm going to take less. They almost never want to take that. Right?
With fear of loss.
Yeah. So I think the key is that you're always looking at it not my risk because you're the owner operator. It's like, well, we're going to have to find somebody to replace you and that's going to cost money. Let's figure out how much that costs. Right? Okay. Now I'm not saying that's my risk because they don't care about your risk. I'm saying we're going to have to find somebody, we together, your problem too, buddy, are going to have to find somebody to replace this. We are going to have to renegotiate the lease and know what it's going to be so that we can get this deal done. And you're arm in arm, hand in hand, working together to solve the challenge of how can I get you as close to your purchase price as possible. Does that make sense?
This is awesome. I know that this question went long, but I hope it helps everyone else on the call because it's a real thing. And, these negotiations can be, they can be difficult conversations, and you can view it as kind of contentious. But it sounds like you enjoy it, and what's your mindset going into one of these negotiations? Do you really have fun with it? And
I do. Yeah. It's to me, I actually really do want to help this person get what they want for the business. I believe that I am helping them solve whatever problem causes them to be a motivated seller. I am trying truly, it's not just lip service, to collaborate with them to get as close as I can there. And I'm going to have fun because I like the challenge of how do I help this person achieve their result? Remember, the result is they want to sell the business.
Right.
Right. So how do I help them achieve that in a way that is favorable to me from my own personal financial objectives? And so the challenge that's fun is how do I marry the two? And how do I find that right thing that's going to be the emotional trigger that's going to cause them to say yes? Right.
Yeah.
So you have to talk to a lot of them. So now here's for you, your homework. I would say go back as in as much detail as you can and deconstruct the 9 offers that you made and start with, were they motivated? Did I find out if they were motivated? How much time did I spend before I learned that they weren't on the ones that weren't? And how can I shorten that time so that I can talk to more? Then the next thing would be, on the ones that were motivated, what was the emotional driver that caused them to be motivated? And how did that impact them saying no? So that you can try to get to the real reason they said no. And let's say that you identify that, 3 out of 3 of those was they wanted cash and you didn't want to pay enough cash for them. Then it's, okay, what could I have done to be more creative to identify sources of funding that would have allowed me to get them what they wanted? Could I have gone to SBA and would that have supported it? And do the numbers. Would it have supported an SBA loan? Because maybe you're being unreasonably emotional of saying, I don't want to pay cash.
Right.
When actually it's a deal that would be a good deal to pay cash for.
Okay.
Right. And could I have gone to a private lender and SBA, or friends and family, or gone to my IRA or something like that and gotten the money? And today I'd own a business that was making me a return of, 42% a year based on that, because these businesses do return a lot based on what you come in. And, so was I being reasonable, and was I thorough enough in my analysis to really dig in and see if I could make this happen? And then I think that'll be tremendously helpful. And sometimes the deals just don't work,
Sure.
So that's kind of how I would look at it.
I appreciate it. Well, this is awesome. I would love to be a fly on the wall in one of your negotiations. But anyway, I really appreciate it. This is awesome. Thank you.
My pleasure. Awesome.
Awesome. Thanks, Ruben. All right. Sheldon. Well, Sheldon just bumped up. So we will go with Joey. Joey Furman, you're up
Hey,
next.
Joey.
Hey, Roland. Thanks a lot for doing this.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to get my first CFE deal.
Nice.
My old business kind of broke, so I need some money.
Okay.
And so I reached out to 80 business owners on LinkedIn with between 10 and 50 employees
Okay.
to offer them a free growth consult. And I thought, oh, this is going to kill. And it was a lot of crickets. 2 people did hit me up, but they wanted to talk about their new AI startup that's going to make them $1 billion, and I'm not interested in that.
Okay.
So then I talked to my FA friend, my financial advisor friend, and my lawyer friend who does real estate. And they're like, there's a lot of compliance issues of me sending you referrals or things like that. So I talked to a CPA, and he was like, yeah, I'm open to, I've got a client that's got $22 million business. I'm happy to ask him if he's open to you doing a free growth consult for him. So we'll see what happens with that. But am I doing this right to try to find my first deal, or what are your thoughts?
So I think I love it, and I love what you're doing. I think that it's a positioning thing. Free generally has no value. So my good friend and co-author of our Business Wealth Without Risk book, Jay Abraham, taught me a really smart way to deal with things like that. So the positioning of that would be better with your CPA client, excuse me, would be, how can you help that person be a greater value to their client? Well, hey, as part of this year, as I'm going through, because this is tax time, right, for extensions, September for partnerships and corporations, I think, and October for individuals. So, hey, as part of the my tax services this year, I want to help you have an even better year next year. I want us to have more tax problems than fewer tax problems because you're making so much money. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy you a $2,500 growth consult with my friend Joey, who is a growth expert. And I'm doing that because I want to invest in your success and kind of give back to you as a way of saying thanks. And I also want to ensure that you're having an even more productive and profitable year next year. How does that sound? That positioning is accountant is wrapping their arm around you and saying, this is my person, which they're doing with the free thing anyway, but free has no value. So then it's like, I'm buying you that, right? Now he's buying it with his relationship capital, not dollars, but all money is not, I mean, all money is not dollars, right? Right? It's not like an actual currency. So I'm going to buy you. And even if you say, I'll buy, and Jay said this, and I just loved it. And the psychological power of it is so great. What he does is he says, look, I'm going to buy you a couple hours of my time. You're going to buy you a couple hours? Yeah. But your time has a cost, right? It has a cost. It has an opportunity cost. So I think that if you have that positioning instead to say, like, what I would like to do is for you to be able to bundle my $2,500 thing in with your services and offer that as an additional value add to your clients. It makes them happier, will make them more successful. They'll be able to make more money and pay you more. And also you will be giving them something which triggers the theory of reciprocity. So you'll be more valuable to them and they'll appreciate what you're doing. How does that sound? Sounds great. Great. That's what this looks like. I'm not going to charge you for that. Just bundle it into your services. And then my goal is that we'll actually be able to find additional value for them. And then when I go in, I'll give them a deliverable, which is a growth plan at the end of that consult that's going to help them that they can go and execute or not, as you know, with me, without me, whatever. Or if they get razzle dazzle frazzled so much that they love what I told them, my hope is that they'll want to work with me. I think that positioning will be significantly stronger for you, even as you go to the professionals asking for the referrals, because now there's something in it for them. It's not because right now you're saying, hey, take a risk of your reputation by referring me for no value to you and hope that I deliver to your clients.
Yeah,
I'm going to say no most of the time to that.
But yours is better.
Yeah. Awesome. So tell me how that feels.
Yeah, that's great. You know, I originally reached out to business owners saying, I'll do it for free, pay what you think it's worth afterwards. It's worth 25K, but you can pay me what you want. That didn't seem to. So do you think the approach of
also, how credible do you feel that is? Like in that positioning, it doesn't sound like, it doesn't sound credible to me. Like it's like, you know, well, wait, if it's worth 25K, why can I pay you what it's worth? Even if you were positioning that, it would be, here's the deal. It's $25,000. And so we're going to sign an agreement that says it's $25,000. But if you don't feel that you got $250,000 of value out of it, then you pay nothing. So I'm not going to ask you to pay in advance. I'm going to send you a bill when we're done, but I'm not going to send you a bill unless when we're done, you agree that you've gotten 10 times the investment that you're making. That's a better positioning because that's saying, I believe that I can deliver you. I know, or I wouldn't spend my time doing it, that I can deliver you 10 times the value of the investment. And I believe it so strongly that I guarantee you that at the end, you're going to agree and you're going to be so happy to pay me the 25K that you're going to be excited to do that. And not only that, hopefully my evil plan is I don't do these for 25K. I do this because I want to be part of your business and I'm excited about working with you, but I believe in it so much that I'm willing to guarantee it. And so at the end, I'm going to say, do you agree that you got this or not? And if you say no, I only got 175,000, I'm not going to let you pay me. That's way stronger.
That's way stronger.
Yeah.
Love it. So for cold outreach, should I focus on the business owners and say something like that? Or do you think the CPA kind of referral
centers of influence, because like you're always better getting centers of influence to refer you because you're coming wrapped in the know, like, and trust that the client already has for them. And that's why it's a risk to them. And so I think recognizing that risk by positioning them as a hero in making the introduction, as opposed to, you know, please do this for me, is just a better approach. Does that make sense?
Love it. Yeah, you're a genius.
Awesome. The key is that it helps you.
Yeah, I'm going to do that.
Okay. Let me know how it goes.
Thanks, Joey. All right, Gary, you are up, my dear. Hey, Gary.
Oh,
Hi, thanks, Deanna. Hi, Roland. Just
Hey, Gary, how's it going?
pretty good. Just trying to follow up with the last time we spoke on putting together the accounting and tax consolidation plan, and what I'm finding. So I was looking at the network of business owners that are on this first group in the center of influence, since we just said center of influence that I'm working with,
Yep.
and there's already over 50 million in EBITDA in this pool. And
Great.
there's a couple of the ones that we reached out to that seemed kind of interesting, and they're already individually over 1 million in EBITDA, which is, I know, the threshold that you were kind of using with the big block scenario. So
Yep.
what my question is, if you were going to look at building it or setting a target, sometimes there's like diminishing, like you picked 100 million or 1 million EBITDA companies. So how do you look at those breakpoints that you could pick like an EBITDA target that would be achievable in a shorter, like, 2 to 3 year similar time horizon?
Yeah, I think that the breakpoints, and these are just like supported by my experience, that they're not something I've seen published somewhere to refer you to a stat, but really around 10 million, 50 million, 100 million, those are going to be points that you're going to see significantly more on the multiple for and the interest of buyers. So I would say if you were looking for a small deal, aggregate 10 and get to 10 million. If you're looking for, a middle-sized deal in the lower middle market, which they call this, look for 50. And if you are trying to get kind of towards the higher end in the middle market, go for 100. But you could put together as few as 5 companies that totaled 10 million and have something that would be, very interesting to certainly to private equity and family offices.
Okay, and then as far as structuring it, so like in this center of influence that we're looking at working with, some of these clients are already paying high ticket for advice, like business type coaching.
Yep.
So is it easier to just have them, if they're paying, say, anywhere like 20, 30, 40, 50,000, just add something on top of that so that it's like similar to the way you were doing,
Yes.
they were buying in for the franchise. So how would you do that? Like, so when you look at 10 million, 50 million, 100 million, there's an opportunity to maybe, have a break point where somebody buys in to be part of it sooner, and then that way you could still have the interest so that if somebody doesn't buy in on the first EBITDA target, then they might be a part of a later one so that we could still
Yeah.
see what the runway might look like. Am I looking at that? Am I
Yeah,
making it
that
overcomplicated, or can that make this
you
easy?
can do it. The challenge is that that generally people want to know that they're treated fairly, so you just want to have that in advance. That, like, hey, and you would probably do it either with your fee being lower on the first few and higher on the, as you get, more established and closer to the goal. And the argument for that is, hey, the people who are in the soonest will be in the longest, and therefore they should get the greatest return. So for the first people in, our take is 20% instead of 40%. And we're paying a multiple of, 6 instead of 5, or something like that. Those would be some levers you could pull there for incentives. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think you just want to have it scheduled out so that there's no ambiguity and nobody feels like, well, could I have negotiated for more or something like that. You want to, as much as possible, have everybody feel they're treated equally, but you can treat people equally in terms of a tiered system, as long as you hold to what you say. Like if you say the first 10 million in EBITDA, we're going to do this deal, and then for the next 40, we're going to do that deal. Just stick with that throughout that. And then everybody knows what they're getting. And they know that they also, it's kind of cool, know the cost of not getting in sooner is going to be significant. And as I was explaining to him, I would say, yeah, I think I'm probably going to wait and see how you get these other people in. I'd be like, okay, that's cool. But just know at your current level of EBITDA of $1 million, that is going to be a $1.5 million decision for you to wait. So if I were you, because you have no risk anyway, I'd get in now and be committed and save yourself that 1.5 million, because I think you're going to feel bad about it later and I won't be able to change the deal.
Okay, so that makes so discounting the fee. So the tiered
It's not
approach.
discounting though. Don't say
Okay.
discounting. Just say this is the fee. You don't discount your fee.
Okay.
The fee simply increases along the way.
Okay. Okay. So that tiered approach could be a good solution for this because it does, instead of just picking something like 5 companies, it gives us the opportunity to see how far we could get by doing the outreach. It shows structure, and then it also can provide more upfront capital while we kind of sort through because people would be paying, they're used to paying for some of the coaching to pay a little bit more for the better opportunity. And then the other thing was, do you consider somebody that comes in as almost like, first tier really wants it, sees it right away, the value, having the ability to have maybe a board seat in the whole company as this kind of gets, because that's the
Sure.
other thing I was like, that's reasonable and might help.
Yeah. Yeah. I would just be sure you define that as like one term, just in case they're not a good fit. You need to put some like, maybe not board of directors, but advisory board. I think
Okay.
advisory board seat would be fine. Just,
Okay.
just when you're doing the documents, just in case they're not a fit, you want to be sure that like that's for a term, which is going to be generally a year.
Okay. Okay. So how important is it to have all the documents before, but it's before we start having some of those preliminary
Not at all,
conversations?
because even a letter of intent will be much rougher, and the terms like that wouldn't be in that. Even you're going to
Okay.
get letter of intent before you get to a definitive agreement. So that's a ways down the way.
Okay. Anything that I should be asking that I might not have thought of that before I start presenting or sharing this with
I think you've done well. I think the next step is get out there and then get some feedback and some data, and then come back and we can talk about it.
Okay. Appreciate it. Thank
All
you.
right, Gary. Thanks.
Thanks, Gary. All right, Cotter Schweier, you're next.
Hey, Cotter.
Thanks, Diana. Hi, Roland. Thanks
Hey.
for taking my call.
Yes,
I
sir.
joined your program just 2 weeks back.
Well, welcome
I
aboard.
Thank you, Roland. Fantastic program. I love it. Your videos, everything,
Thank you.
mind blowing for me.
I
I'm
love
learning
it.
a lot. And I'm focusing on brick and mortar business, 1 to 2 million, revenues. I'm about to make cold calls. I'm excited. My question, if they may ask question, right? Hey, you don't have experience in this business. How do you manage my business after you buy it? How can I answer that?
So I would say two things. One is you don't want to go into the business without a plan of who the operator is going to be, right? So it's either going to be the person that you're buying it from is going to stay on, or it's going to be there's somebody at the business who can ascend into the operator position, or you found a consultant or contractor that consults in the industry or already consults with that business that's willing to come in and do that, because that's a good place to find people. Or you're going to have somebody that knows the business, or you're going to go out and find somebody, right? So that's what I would say to them is, look, I'm really excited about it. And one of the things that's really important to me, and hopefully it's important to you, is that there's continuity of the business, both from the legacy that you've created, because you've done a great job creating this. Also, I want to be sure that your employees feel comfortable and confident that they're going to have a home and that things are going to continue to operate pretty much as they have, maybe with some improvements along the way. And part of doing that is, and we want your customers also to feel confident so that they stay. That's important to me as a buyer, because I'm going to be paying you money and I want to be sure that the business continues to operate. So our goals are aligned with what we're after here. That's important for us to start with. Now, the second thing is how is that going to happen? What's going to happen, because it's going to happen by us having an operator who does have the experience. Now, my first choice is that you would stay on for a period of time, and I'll continue to pay you what you're receiving now, that is, if it's a reasonable salary, or I will pay you the going rate for somebody that does what you do. And during that time, we will work together to find somebody that will replace you. Or you'll train somebody in the business that you feel you've identified, and I agree, that can ascend into this position. Is there anybody like that at the business right now? That's what I would ask. Yes, great. Do you think that she, he, it, they can become somebody in this position? Yes, great. Okay, let's talk about what that looks like. Fantastic. Now you've got continuity. If the answer is no, then it's like, okay, you start going down that path of, well, who would you hire if you were hiring your replacement right now? Let's collaborate together on that. And then worst case is, I have no idea who would replace me because I'm primarily the operator. Nobody at the business is capable of doing what I do. So you're going to have to find somebody who's like, okay, then I definitely need you to hang on for a transition period of time for, as long as you can get, preferably a year, hopefully not less than 6 months. And during that time, you're going to be going through with them a process of finding this replacement. So that's really how I would answer that question. Does that make sense?
Yes, very helpful, very helpful.
Awesome.
Another question, Roland. When I meet them, what is the dress code I have to go with?
It's
When
up
you
to
meet-
you. I mean, it's your personal style. What you have right now, great. I think is good. That's business casual, I think is kind of defining, unless the industry is like a suit and tie industry, in which case, like if they're going to have a suit and tie, you might want to have a suit and tie too, just because that's kind of how they relate, and people like people that are like themselves. So simply from a rapport standpoint or a
Exactly.
respect standpoint. But other than that, I think you dress how you like to dress.
Awesome, thank you. Another question, Roland. If I meet them, right, start talking about the business, they ask first question, right? Hey, do you want to pay cash or you want to go with the bank loan?
Yeah, I don't talk about that until I get closer to terms,
No,
right?
they may
So
ask, right?
if they
When
ask, then
meet them.
I would say it totally depends. I need to find out a little bit more about the business. Sometimes I pay cash. Sometimes we do seller financing. Sometimes we do other things. But it's really too soon for us to talk about that. I need a little bit more information about the business before I can get into that. But I will give you offers once I get all the information I need. So don't worry about it.
Okay, got it.
Okay?
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You are
Thanks,
very welcome.
Tadishvar. All right. I think Tamara, you are up, my dear.
Hey, Tamara.
There you are.
There she is. How
All right,
are
here
you?
we go. Hello. Pleasure to meet you. My
My pleasure.
first time caller.
Well, good for you. How can we help today?
Yes. I have a new 501c and nonprofit corporation.
Yep.
For a horse ranch.
Okay.
And I'm wondering if that's something that that you cover here in this type of environment.
What specifically is your question?
Grant money, how to raise money, how to get donors, but not like as a borrowing, as a grant, as a foundation gift.
Yeah, we don't really cover grants. That's a pretty specific niche. I know there are people, and Bailey or Deanna could probably refer you to some of the people that are good with those kinds of things, depending on the types of grants you're looking for. But yeah, we're more looking at how do we raise capital or use the assets of the business or other creative financing to acquire things, and the grant world is a little bit different.
Yeah, and how about the launching of the 501c3 business? Would that be something that I would be assisted here with?
Well, the launching, if you wanted to acquire another business that had things that would help you launch faster, that would definitely be good. But like we're really about existing businesses more than startups. So what I would consider might be having the 501c3 acquire a horse ranch, or some other thing that would benefit whatever it is that you're doing. So if you look around the acquisition wheel and say, what are the 7 things that we're solving for typically in any business? How do I get more customers? How do I get more leads? How do I get the people to run the business? How does it make more money? How does it in profit? How does it make more sales? How does it have a more innovation? Those are kind of the 7 categories. Then I would go around and say, what are the things that I might be able to acquire that would help this business launch faster, get more grants, those kinds of things? Absolutely, you're in the right place.
Okay.
And what's cool about that, now that I'm kind of talking about it, is that like if you identify grants that you would like and you don't currently meet some of the requirements, using acquisitions to get yourself positioned in your current 501c3 to where you would qualify for the grants would be a really good strategy.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
All right, and Tamara, I know you just got started, so I know Coach Jesse will be able to help you as well as Bailey and I if you have any questions. So lean into the team. We're here to help.
Okay.
All
Thank
right.
you.
All right, Toyin, I believe you are up next, and then we'll finish up with Jack today.
Hey, Toyin, nice to see you.
Toyin, I think
Your audio's a little clippy.
Can you hear me?
Keep
Yes.
talking.
Roland, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Okay. Good to see you.
It's good to see you too. Um, eh, so how do you stay on top of, well, two questions I have. I've been learning everything I can about AI and AI software.
Yep.
So uh, what do you do to stay on top of AI and all the new stuff coming out? Because it seems very rapid, and also at what point would you not touch the AI and hire a contractor to do the work for you?
Those are two really great questions. I'll start with the second one first. So I think that it's with anything, it's good to have a broad general knowledge of what's going on. So I think that it makes sense for everybody here and everybody in the world right now to invest time in understanding and using AI at the most basic level. So if you're not already using ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude or Grok or one of the other, big AI chat bots, I think that you really want to invest some time learning about them and using them and trying to integrate them into your life. I know that more and more and more people are using, even for Google type searches, are using AI to get answers to their questions. So I think leaning into that is really important. And then whatever you're going to have people do, I think it's good, again, to have like an overview knowledge of that. So for me, I'm all in and have been since, was it November of 22? I think that ChatGPT launched on it. But what I found was, and there's about 100 newsletters that I subscribe to. I don't read them every time that they come out. I look for headlines, but I do spend about an hour every day going through my YouTube subscriptions, my newsletter subscriptions, the emails that they send me, and just looking for new and interesting things that I want to read about or reports that have come out. That I do think is very helpful. I know that's a lot of time, but I do think it's that important. As far as deeper than that, when I find something that I'm interested in, like more recently, Lovable and Cursor and Claude Code, which allow you to do text to code, I have gotten into, and I have built things in them and I understand them, but I am by no means anything close to an expert because that's not what I want to do. I don't want to be a Claude coder. I don't want to be an AI coder, but I do want to know enough about it that the team that I've got 2 full-time people that are dedicated to primarily building things in AI. And so it's important for me to be able to speak to them about what I want them to do, about what I think they should be capable of doing, about the time that I think that it should take them, about prioritizing, about helping them answer questions they might have, about how do they do what they do to get me what I want. That's really, really helpful. And so then that goes into, I'm going to hire contractors to do the nitty gritty. We just had a major rebuild of Deal Done, and it's all AI-ified. That was done by my team, right? And by my team, it's my son and his best friend who I've helped educate. I got them both into AI, 3 years ago now. And now they've gone deeper into particularly coding with AI than I ever will go. But now they're amazing at it. And so they're running the tools and things like that. But I'll generally learn about new tools or strategies or evolutions and tell them probably 70% of the time, and 30% of the time they're telling me. So I think that you just have to decide how deep do you want to be. but at a minimum, I think you should know enough about it to be able to talk to people about it, to know the capabilities and know about how long it takes to do things. That's the way to manage your AI team, whether it's employees or contractors, effectively. And I think that's really the way to go about that. And it also, I think, answers how do I stay on top of things, which was your first question. It's really heavy into my YouTube subscriptions and newsletter subscriptions. And then I have a Google Alert that flags certain things that I'm interested in. And then I'll read reports when reports come out. When definitely follow Gemini, OpenAI, Anthropic, and whatever. I think Musk spun Grok out of Twitter, and it's called something else now. But I think it's good to follow those directly. And when they do press releases, definitely check them out. When they have big updates, check those out. Is that helpful?
Very, very helpful. Thank you so much. And do you use Perplexity?
I have used it, but I haven't found it to, for me. It's not that it's not good. It's just that I spend most of my time in Claude and ChatGPT, and then Gemini when I'm trying to do AI related to a Google product, just because I figure it's got a better connection. Particularly now that you can, as of I think last week, connect your Gmail and Google Calendars to OpenAI, and I have for some period of time been able to do it with Claude before that. That's super, super helpful. So Perplexity, I think, is great. It's just not one that I use, but it's not for any reason other than that I use Claude because Claude codes best, in my opinion. I use ChatGPT because it was the first one that I did, and I use Gemini for Google products. So those are my three primary, and I just don't have that much time or room to do another one. But I think if you like Perplexity, it's certainly a great solution.
Okay. Yes, that was very helpful, Roland. Thank you so much. It's always good to see you.
Yeah, likewise. You're welcome.
All right. Thank you, Toyin. All right, Jack, you've got a question. Then I see Sheldon's back, and we'll end there. So, Jack, what is your question?
Hey, Jack.
Hey, Roland. I'm relatively new with you. I love your book. So I got involved.
Awesome.
And I've had actually did the entrepreneur thing where I actually started a technology company and grew it from like $50 to a multi-million-dollar company. So I don't want to go through that again. And let me just start before I say this any further. If this gets too noisy, just let me know. There's some things that are going on that I have no control over.
No worries.
So if it's too noisy, please, by all means, don't feel bad about telling me, okay, you're done.
I've asked my dogs to be quiet too, but sometimes they don't listen.
Yeah, I get it. So I have a question, but I also had a couple of observations on your conversation with Ruben, which I absolutely loved. If I could just take a minute and go through that and just say, so you were explaining an awful lot about how you're showing them all that you're doing. So in other words, if you step back and you look at your advice and the way that you're advising is that it's true to life. The law of reciprocation will eventually kick in. And if it doesn't, they're going to tell you whether or not they're interested, and that's going to help you gauge their level of interest. And what I mean by that is, look, I've looked at these things. I went here, I've got this funding, I've done these things. I've got to replace you as the operator. I've got to hire another person because you're doing two jobs and maybe not paying yourself correctly.
Yep.
And so you're going through all of those things, and you ask the question, rightfully so, how can I do that? So we're kind of inviting them in at that point and asking them to be part of the solution.
Yep.
And if they're not jumping in, and I think that's probably a very clear gauge of what their level of interest is on and what their motivation might be for selling the business.
Agree.
Second observation, I don't remember who I read about this, but you had mentioned price seems to be the biggest important piece of it. And I read that somewhere else because, and the reason why you didn't kind of connect that, but what I read was that a lot of these people that have businesses that want to exit also have friends that want to exit, and they want bragging rights.
Yeah.
So if they can get their price, then, out on the golf course, they're like, oh yeah, okay. So that's just two observations.
Yeah.
And then, so the question I had was, we have real estate, and be very honest with you, I don't like real estate.
Okay.
So in trying to identify which business I might want to start to acquire, I thought, well, let's just get a property management company because I don't like it, and I'm less apt to kind of put my hands in it. So that's probably a good stopgap for me.
Yep.
So the question is, we noticed, and I'm here in Southeast Florida. So the question is that we really have, in many places around the country, a declining real estate market. We've got a lot more inventory. We've got a lot more availability.
Yep.
So I think, from just in being in it for a while, I think there's going to be a consolidation of property management companies.
Yep.
So the question becomes, and I don't know the answer. Would you chase a market segment that will likely be consolidating?
Yes.
Because so that you're ready for when we come out of it. Is that a strategy that you would?
Yeah, because what that means is if there's consolidation currently or coming soon, it means that private equity will be involved. Prices will likely go up because demand will go up. And if you have built-in buyers, that's a wonderful place to be. So I like it for that reason.
Okay, great. I got nothing else other than to say you're doing a great job, and thanks for being here. To your whole team, by the way.
Awesome. Thank you. We really appreciate it. It means a lot, and let us know how it goes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. All right, Sheldon, let's end today with your question. I'm glad to see you back, buddy.
Hey, Sheldon.
Thanks, Deanna. Hey, Roland. So I had a question for as far as attorneys. So I'm getting an attorney group to put together, I guess, paperwork for the MSO, the MSA, some of the closing documents.
Yep.
And the question is more in regard to, he asked me this the other day, and it made me think, because basically if the seller's attorney was on board with it, and I remember talking with him about it, he didn't seem like he had any issues with the purchase sale agreement, but it was more just him looking out for his the seller on like are you sure you want to do this much seller financing? So sure. I guess my question is basically, before going through all this, is there something I can do with the seller asking to make sure before paying? Because the basic attorney is like, well, what'll end up happening if their attorney's not in right with it, it'll just lead to more time, more expenses. So I didn't know if there's anything, or that's just kind of how it works with the negotiation of.
I think I think one thing that's really helpful is for you to position, like if you've positioned well with the seller that you are collaborating and that you guys have reached an agreement, it's important, I think, to tell them, look, we're both going to take this to our attorneys, and our attorneys are going to try to earn their money, and they're going to have questions about the deal. Just remember that the attorneys are not entrepreneurs. The attorneys are trying to protect you from legal issues, and that's good. But they'll also try to talk to you about deal points. And we've already talked about that. So I'm not going to let my attorney push me into a different deal than you and I have agreed to. And I ask that you ask your attorney to only look out for you from the legal issues and not from the deal issues. The business issues are things that we've talked about and agreed on. And if you'll give me that courtesy, I will you as well. Because otherwise we're both going to have a lot higher legal fee. And let's just face it, most attorneys aren't as successful as entrepreneurs anyway.
Perfect.
I find that to be really helpful. It's like, because you're just cutting it off. And then when the attorney says, well, are you sure you want to do that much seller financing? It's like, you go back to the seller and say, that's not the issue that the attorney should be talking to you about. The issue should be, what are the terms on the seller financing that give you the protection that you need, right? That's a legal question. A business question is, what percentage of the deal should be seller financing? Don't let the attorney negotiate your deal. We already collaborated. That's why I'm able to get you what we agreed on, right? Mm-hmm. So if the deal changes because your attorney starts renegotiating the deal, then the number's probably going to change.
Okay. No, I like that, because that actually happened, I guess, maybe a week or two ago, where the same comment, and the seller is very open to it, but basically that's what happened. He came back, he goes, look, I understand he doesn't, understand maybe that piece of it, but they got me thinking. I was like, well, this could be an ongoing back and forth.
Yeah, you got to put a cap on that. and do that collaboratively the way that I talked about. That's very effective. And one of my favorite CFE deals I did was the attorney that I had the deal worked out. The attorney called me and said, I'm the attorney representing so and so, blah blah blah. I'm like, great. And he said, listen, this agreement, it's just completely unacceptable. And I said, oh, what is the challenge you have? Well, it's just that there's these deliverables aren't defined, and it needs to be, this, and you have to agree to do this, that, and the other, and blah blah blah. And I said, I totally respect that, and I understand that you are doing what you feel you need to do to protect your client, but I don't do that. This is the way the deal is, and I've already talked with your client about it, and we agreed on it. So, I think you should definitely tell them these things that you feel, and I understand that you need to do that, but I won't make the changes. And he just couldn't stand it. And so he's like, well, then I'm going to tell him not to do the deal. And I said, I understand that, and if that's what you need to do, tell them. I think you'll find that we already have reached the agreement, and if they change their mind, that's okay. But we're not going to change from what we agreed on. And then, of course, he went back to the client, and the client's like, no, that's we want to do the deal. So, but it was just so funny because he was so emotionally invested in, like puffing up his chest and pounding it and telling me, the way things were going to be. And I just kept saying, I respectfully, hey, look, I totally understand, that's what you feel, and definitely tell them that. But the deal's the deal.
I appreciate that. No, thanks. I'll use that then.
Yeah. Awesome. Let me know how it goes.
All right. Thank you, Sheldon. Coach, also make sure on the next call that we'll get your additional questions answered. We're excited to help everyone. This was an amazing call. Roland, you really dropped some amazing nuggets here today. So
I really liked the conversation with Ruben. I think that's going to be super helpful to everybody. So maybe we can clip that out and send it out to people in emails too. I think that'll be really helpful. Thank you guys for all being here. Deanna and Bailey, thank you guys. I really appreciate all that you do. And I love that everyone compliments our whole team, because it is all of us that make this possible for you guys. Anything else you want to say, Dee, to everybody before we sign on?
Again, if you're coming to see Roland and our team live in person in September in a couple of weeks, you got to let Bailey and I know. We have a couple of seats left, and we're super excited.
What if somebody that's watching on YouTube wants to be able to contact you?
You can. It's Deanna at epicnetwork.com. And we're going to be posting some, watch on Facebook group as well. I've been posting links about it as well, but Deanna at epicnetwork.com, ping me and we'll chat about how we can get you in the room. This is our last one for our E&L event. So you got to be in that room. So we're excited to see everyone. Roland, again, pure gold today, as always.
Awesome. Thank you.